The gavel hit the desk with a sharp crack, and the room erupted into chaos. Alexandra's heart pounded as she stood at the head of the conference table, her hands trembling slightly but her expression unyielding. She had just been named CEO of Sterling Industries, her family's legacy, built over 3 generations. The board members clapped politely, some with genuine enthusiasm, others with thinly veiled skepticism. But none of that mattered now. This was her moment. "Congratulations," her sister Victoria said from across the room, her voice smooth and cold like marble. Alex barely had time to turn toward her before Victoria continued, "Enjoy it while it lasts." There was something in her tone, a warning disguised as a compliment, that made Alex's stomach twist. It wasn't until later that evening, when Alex returned to her office to tidy up after the whirlwind day, that she realized what Victoria meant. A single envelope lay on her desk, its edges crisp and deliberate. Her name was scrawled across it in handwriting she recognized immediately, bold, precise, unmistakably Victoria's. With a growing sense of dread, Alex opened it. Inside was a letter of termination, not for anyone else, but for her. Effective immediately. Signed by Victoria herself, who held enough shares in the company to override any decision Alex might make. The words blurred together as shock took hold. How could this happen? After everything they'd been through, their father's passing, the years of working side by side to keep the business afloat, how could Victoria do this? Alex sank into her chair, staring at the document like it might burst into flames if she looked away long enough. It didn't. Instead, it sat there, mocking her with its finality. Her mind raced. Was this revenge? For what? All those late nights spent strategizing, all those sacrifices she'd made for the company, for their family, had they meant nothing? The next morning, Alex arrived at the office early, hoping to confront Victoria before anyone else showed up. The building felt eerily quiet, the hum of fluorescent lights above her the only sound echoing through the halls. When she reached Victoria's office, she found the door already open. Victoria sat behind her desk, impeccably dressed as always, sipping coffee from a porcelain cup. She glanced up briefly, then set the cup down with an exaggerated sigh. "You're here," Victoria said, leaning back in her chair. Her tone was calm, almost bored, but there was a glint in her eye that Alex couldn't quite place. "I assume you got my little gift." "This isn't funny, Tori," Alex snapped, slamming the letter onto the desk. "What is this? Some kind of sick joke?" Victoria raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. "A joke? Hardly. I thought it was pretty straightforward. You've been fired, Lexi. End of story." "But why?" Alex demanded, her voice rising despite her best efforts to stay composed. "We've worked so hard for this company, together. Why would you throw it all away like this?" Victoria tilted her head, studying Alex as though she were a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Oh, Lexi," she said softly, almost pityingly. "You really don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" Alex shot back, frustration bubbling over. "Explain it to me then. Because last I checked, we were supposed to be a team." Victoria laughed, a sharp bitter sound that sent chills down Alex's spine. "A team? Is that what you think this is? Let me clue you in, dear sister, this has never been about teamwork. Not for me, anyway." She stood and walked around the desk, stopping just inches away from Alex. Her eyes burned with intensity, and for the first time, Alex saw the depth of resentment simmering beneath Victoria's polished exterior. "You've always had it easy, haven't you?" Victoria hissed, her voice low and venomous. "Daddy's golden girl. Always getting praised, always getting second chances. Do you even remember how many times I covered for you when you screwed up? How many deals I saved because you couldn't handle the pressure?" "That's not fair." Alex protested, taking a step back. "I worked just as hard as you did." "Harder." Victoria interrupted, her lips curling into a sneer. "Please. You coasted on charm and connections. Meanwhile, I was the one putting in the real work, the grunt work. And for what? So you could waltz in here and take the top spot without breaking a sweat." "That's not true." Alex shouted, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "I earned this position. The board voted unanimously." "And whose idea do you think that was?" Victoria countered, crossing her arms. "Mine. I suggested your name. I orchestrated the whole thing. And why? Because I wanted to see you fall flat on your face. I wanted everyone to see exactly who you really are, a fraud. Alex stared at her, speechless. The weight of Victoria's betrayal pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She had always known her sister was ambitious, driven even, but this level of calculated cruelty was beyond anything she could have imagined. Why are you doing this? Alex whispered finally, her voice breaking. We're sisters. Family. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Victoria's expression softened ever so slightly, but there was no warmth in her gaze. Family doesn't mean loyalty, Lexi. It means leverage. And right now, I'm using it to take back what should have been mine from the start. Before Alex could respond, the door swung open, and 2 security guards stepped inside. They exchanged a glance with Victoria, who nodded curtly. One of them approached Alex, his hand outstretched. Miss Sterling, he said gruffly. We need you to leave the premises. What? Alex exclaimed, backing away instinctively. You can't kick me out. I'm still part owner of this company. Not anymore, Victoria interjected smoothly, picking up the termination letter from her desk. As of today, your shares have been liquidated. Consider it severance pay. No. Alex cried, shaking her head in disbelief. You can't do this to me. Oh, but I can, Victoria replied, her smile icy. And I did. As the guards closed in, Alex felt a wave of panic wash over her. She tried to resist, shouting protests that went unanswered, but ultimately, she was escorted out of the building like a common criminal. Employees gawked as she passed, whispering behind their hands. Some looked sympathetic, most looked amused. Once outside, Alex collapsed onto a bench near the parking lot, her mind reeling. Everything she had worked for, everything she had believed in, was gone in the blink of an eye. And the person responsible wasn't some faceless rival or corporate shark. It was her own flesh and blood. Over the next few days, the reality of her situation began to sink in. Without access to the company's resources, Alex found herself cut off from nearly every professional contact she had. Calls went unanswered, emails ignored. Even former colleagues seemed hesitant to associate with her, fearful of crossing Victoria. It was as though she had become untouchable overnight. Desperate for answers, and perhaps a way to fight back, Alex turned to old friends outside the industry. One of them, a tech entrepreneur named Marcus, agreed to meet her for coffee. He listened intently as she recounted the events leading up to her dismissal, occasionally nodding or scribbling notes on a napkin. So let me get this straight, Marcus said once she finished. Your sister orchestrated your promotion just so she could fire you publicly and strip you of your shares? Alex nodded miserably. Pretty much. She's always been competitive, but I never thought she'd go this far. Marcus leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen against the table. That's bold. And incredibly risky. If word gets out about what she did, it could destroy her reputation. I don't care about her reputation, Alex muttered, staring into her untouched coffee. I just want my life back. Well, Marcus said thoughtfully, there may be a way to do that. But it won't be easy. Alex looked up, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time in days. What do you mean? Marcus hesitated, choosing his words carefully. If you can prove that Victoria acted out of malice rather than legitimate business concerns, you might have grounds for legal action. Shareholder disputes can get messy, but given the circumstances... He trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Alex considered his suggestion, weighing the risks and rewards. Going after Victoria legally would be expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally draining. But more than that, it would force her to confront the painful truth about their relationship head-on. Do you think I have a chance? Alex asked quietly. Marcus shrugged. Depends on how badly you want it, and whether you're willing to burn bridges along the way. Alex sighed, rubbing her temples. For years, she had prided herself on being the peacemaker in her family, the one who smoothed over conflicts and kept everyone united. But maybe peace wasn't possible anymore. Maybe it was time to fight back, not just for herself, but for the future she deserved. I'll do whatever it takes, she said firmly, meeting Marcus's gaze. Whatever it takes. As they parted ways, Alex knew she was stepping onto uncertain ground. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, betrayals, and heartache. But deep down, she also knew one thing for certain: she wasn't going to let Victoria win, not without a fight. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless research. Alex buried herself in legal documents, financial reports, and old emails, searching for anything that could prove Victoria's malicious intent. She reached out to former employees who had witnessed Victoria's manipulative tactics firsthand, coaxing them into sharing their stories despite their fear of retaliation. Every scrap of evidence felt like a lifeline, but it wasn't enough, not yet. One evening, as she sat at her kitchen table surrounded by piles of paperwork, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Hesitant, she answered. "Alexandra Sterling?" The voice on the other end was low and gravelly, tinged with urgency. "This is Detective Harris. We need to talk." Her stomach dropped. "About what?" "I'd rather not discuss it over the phone," he replied. "Can we meet tomorrow morning? It's important." Reluctantly, Alex agreed, though dread gnawed at her all night. What could the police possibly want from her now? Had Victoria somehow twisted things further, turning this into a criminal matter? By the time she arrived at the precinct the next day, her nerves were frayed. Detective Harris greeted her with a somber expression. He led her to a small dimly lit room where a folder lay open on the table. Inside were photos, grainy surveillance images showing Victoria meeting with someone in a shadowy parking lot late at night. "We've been investigating irregularities within Sterling Industries," Harris explained, his tone measured. "These meetings suggest your sister may have been involved in, let's say, less than legal activities." Alex's breath caught. "What kind of activities?" Harris hesitated before leaning forward. "Money laundering. Insider trading. Funneling company funds into offshore accounts. Your sister isn't just playing dirty politics, Ms. Sterling. She's breaking laws." The revelation hit Alex like a freight train. As much as she despised Victoria for what she'd done, part of her still clung to the hope that her sister's actions stemmed from jealousy or hurt pride, not outright criminal behavior. But this was something else entirely. "What happens now?" Alex asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "That depends on you," Harris said bluntly. "We can use your testimony to build a case against her, but we'll need more than circumstantial evidence. If you're willing to cooperate, we might be able to take her down before she does any more damage, to the company, or to anyone else." Cooperate. The word echoed in Alex's mind. Cooperating meant stepping fully into the role of whistleblower, exposing not only Victoria but potentially tarnishing the Sterling name forever. Yet staying silent meant letting her sister continue unchecked, destroying lives and livelihoods in pursuit of power. "I'll do it," Alex said finally, her jaw tightening with resolve. "But I need protection. If she finds out." "You'll have it," Harris assured her. "Consider yourself under our watch until this is resolved." As the investigation unfolded, Alex found herself caught in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Victoria, ever cunning, seemed to sense something was amiss. She began tightening her grip on the company, firing key staff members loyal to Alex and replacing them with her own allies. Rumors spread about impending layoffs, sending waves of panic through the workforce. Meanwhile, Alex worked tirelessly behind the scenes, gathering intel while maintaining a facade of defeat. She attended industry events, forcing herself to smile and mingle, even as whispers about her downfall followed her everywhere. Some people offered pity, others sneered, clearly enjoying her fall from grace. Through it all, Alex kept her focus razor-sharp, knowing that one misstep could cost her everything. Then came the breakthrough. One of Victoria's closest confidants, a finance executive named Daniel, approached Alex after weeks of careful persuasion. His loyalty to Victoria had wavered when he discovered the extent of her schemes, and he now feared becoming collateral damage. "I have access to records," Daniel confessed during a clandestine meeting in a secluded park. "Ledgers, transfer logs, communications. Enough to bury her." Alex's pulse quickened. "Why are you doing this?" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Because I didn't sign up for this. I thought I was working for a strong leader, not a criminal mastermind. And because," he paused, glancing around nervously, "because I know what she did to you. No one deserves that." With Daniel's help, the pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. They uncovered a web of deceit so intricate that it made Alex's head spin. Victoria hadn't just fired her out of spite. She'd orchestrated the entire coup to seize control of the company and its assets, using illegal means to consolidate power. But as damning as the evidence was, presenting it posed another challenge altogether. Alex knew that going public would ignite a media firestorm, dragging the Sterling family name through the mud. Yet keeping quiet wasn't an option either. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about justice. One night, as she reviewed the files with Marcus, who had become both her ally and confidant, Alex voiced her fears aloud. "What if I lose everything?" she asked, staring at the stack of documents. "Not just the company, but my dignity, my reputation, everything I've built." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've already lost those things, Alex. What you're fighting for now is the chance to rebuild. To prove to yourself, and to everyone else, that you won't let her win." His words struck a chord deep within her. For months, Alex had been consumed by anger and grief, fueled by the desire to reclaim what Victoria had stolen. But perhaps the real victory wouldn't come from tearing her sister down. Perhaps it would come from rising above the chaos, emerging stronger and wiser than before. The day of reckoning arrived sooner than expected. A whistleblower within the company leaked portions of the incriminating evidence to a major news outlet, sparking widespread outrage. Headlines screamed accusations of corruption and betrayal, painting Victoria as a villain straight out of a corporate thriller. Overnight, Sterling Industries became synonymous with scandal. Victoria retaliated fiercely, launching smear campaigns and attempting to discredit the allegations. But the tide had turned against her. Employees came forward with their own stories of mistreatment, investors pulled funding, and regulatory agencies launched formal investigations. Caught in the eye of the storm, Alex chose to remain silent, at least publicly. Behind closed doors, however, she worked tirelessly to stabilize the company, partnering with trusted advisors to implement reforms and restore trust. It was grueling work, but every small victory reminded her why she had fought so hard. And then, one fateful afternoon, Victoria appeared at Alex's doorstep. Gone was the polished executive. In her place stood a broken woman, her eyes hollow and her posture defeated. "I never wanted it to go this far," Victoria whispered, her voice trembling. I wanted to be seen. To matter." For a moment, Alex felt a pang of sympathy. Beneath the layers of resentment and ambition, Victoria was still her sister, the same girl who had once shared secrets and dreams beneath the covers of their childhood bedroom. But sympathy wasn't absolution. "You should have thought about that before you crossed the line," Alex replied evenly. "It's too late for apologies, Tori. You made your choice." As Victoria turned to leave, tears streaming down her face, Alex closed the door softly. She leaned against it, exhaling deeply. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of peace. She had survived the storm. Now it was time to rebuild, not just the company, but herself. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Alex knew one thing for certain: she was ready to face them, unafraid and unbroken. Months later, the dust finally settled. Victoria's schemes unraveled completely, leaving her stripped of power and facing legal consequences. Sterling Industries, though battered, began to heal under Alex's steady leadership. She rebuilt not only the company but also its culture, fostering transparency and trust. One crisp morning, Alex stood on the rooftop of the Sterling building, overlooking the city that had tested her resilience. The board had just reinstated her as CEO, this time with unanimous support. But the title no longer defined her. What mattered was the legacy she'd fought to protect, and the strength she discovered within herself. As the sun rose, casting golden light over the skyline, Alex smiled softly. She wasn't the same person who had walked into that fateful boardroom months ago. She was stronger, wiser, unshakable. And for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace. The Sterling name would endure, not because of power or revenge, but because of hope, hard work, and the unyielding belief that even in the darkest moments, there is always a way forward. She turned, ready to face whatever came next.